Hello, my name is Richard Chung. I'm a product manager with Eaton for the SmartWire DT product line. To understand the benefits of SmartWire DT and what we call our lean connectivity solution, let's first look at a conventionally wired control panel. Here we have basically a composite control panel that's been built with a lot of push buttons and pallet light devices on the door. Inside we have motor starters, manual motor protectors, all wired up to a conventional PLC with I/O modules. And as you can see, there are lots of wires throughout the cabinet, inside the wireways. The time it takes to measure, cut the length, strip the wire, add ferrules, add wire markers, dress the wires in the trays, add the wire ties, and bundle the wires means that it takes us a long time to put together a panel like this. And that's the takeaway. It takes a long time to do some assembly. And we still have some problematic areas. One, we can have loose terminations, we can have some miswired terminations, and sometimes we can have intermittent issues. As an example, on this particular control panel, I was demonstrating this and I noticed that this light was flickering. And what we later learned was that the connection to this light was actually, the wire was actually wired to the wrong side of the saddle clamp on the push button contact lock. And but it was held in place very tightly because of the wire bundling holding it in place. That sort of intermittent issue can be very time consuming to troubleshoot and identify. Next, I'd like to show you what our lean connectivity solution looks like with SmartWire DT. Take a look at this panel. The first thing you'll notice that there's a big space where the conventional PLC was located, and I'll explain that in a minute. SmartWire DT works with any third-party PLC through the use of what we call a gateway. So for example, I could still have the same PLC CPU that you saw on this panel located here. I would have an additional gateway solution here, and that would be wired to my flat green cable. In this instance, what I've done here is actually included the PLC functionality inside my HMI PLC. So all the logic is being run from this particular unit. It's a combination PLC and HMI in one. In addition, the actual gateway to the SmartWire DT system is actually built in, so the flat cable can plug directly into the back of the HMI PLC. So what you'll notice here is the flat cable just simply connects all my devices serially in one line, all my push button devices back to my contactor devices on this one flat cable. You'll notice that there are some indicating lights that you see on each device. That's telling me the status of the actual module on SmartWire DT. So to use SmartWire DT, it's very easy. First, you connect all your devices, you power it up, and what we have is what we call an auto configuration button. You press that button, and SmartWire DT goes out and learns the network. It goes out, finds and identifies each and every node that it's connected to, and maps it and gives it a node address automatically. So the nice thing about that is it's easy to use. You don't have to set any separate address modules with dip switches or any other way. It does so automatically. Once it does that, you would map that information if you were using a gateway back to your PLC program and or the program that you have in the HMI PLC. Now, as you can see, what SmartWire DT does is really essentially standardizes the connections that it makes to all your components. We're using the same connector, whether it's attached to the contactor module or a push button module. The other thing to notice is that we're using still standard control components. The motor contactors that you see here and the pallet light devices that you see on the door are all standard components. What's different is the module that sits on top of the contactor and the module that plugs into the back of the push button unit. Inside those modules we have a smart chip, and that allows us to essentially make these components smart enough to talk directly to the HMI PLC. Essentially that gives us basically a distributed I/O point down to each component device. With SmartWire DT, I can do a number of things, and one of those things is actually to get some diagnostic information over the network. So if you'll notice, I have two types of manual motor protector units inside this cabinet. One is our standard electromechanical manual motor protector unit. And on the left-hand side here, you'll see an electronic manual motor protector unit with an interchangeable trip unit. With SmartWire DT, what I can do is actually tap into the electronics on that unit, and with that I'm able to actually monitor the motor current that's coming out of this this motor connection. I can also monitor the status of the MMP and its trip condition. If you wanted to compare that with a conventionally wired device, if you wanted to look at the motor load of a standard device, typically you would have to add some sort of current sensor and then wire it back to some analog inputs on the PLC. So this solution can save you time and expense in doing that current monitoring. One of the other benefits of using SmartWire DT is the enhanced diagnostics that you can get over the system. For example, if something were disconnected or turned off, I can monitor that information over the network and show it on my touch screen. So for example, I've set up an alarm page here that tells me exactly where those trouble areas are. I can then go in and make those corrections by reconnecting the devices, resetting my tripped manual motor protector units, and as the faults are fixed, the errors will go away. I would reset the device and then I could restart my system. One of the things that you'll notice with the SmartWire DT panel is this extra space that we have on the top of this cabinet where the conventional PLC was located with the conventional I/O modules. We've basically eliminated the I/O modules from the PLC because we have the I/O point connections on each and every device. And that's what we do with the SmartWire DT chip that's inside the Smart module that sits on top of the contactor or attaches to the back of the push-button device. For other components, such as the stack light, for example, that does not have a SmartWire DT module, you can use one of 8 different I/O module cards on SmartWire DT to connect the different devices. We have a variety of digital and analog I/O modules to allow you to connect just about anything to SmartWire DT as well. Some of the new products that we have coming out with SmartWire DT are our new stack lights, the SL7 70mm stack light, as well as the SL4 40mm stack light. As you can see, it has a base where you simply will be able to click in the SmartWire DT cable. Also, we have the larger frame 65 amp XDPE manual motor protector units. And this module clips in right here at the base of the MMP. We also have a full line of the DS7 soft starters that have SmartWire DT integrated into them, all the way up to 150 horsepower. And finally, coming soon are the DC1 variable frequency drives up to 15 horsepower at 480 volts. Here there'll be a module that clicks to the front of the drive and that will accept the SmartWire DT connection. With SmartWire DT, you'll also get a number of other benefits. Not only does it reduce the time it takes to build and wire a control panel, but we also help to eliminate the complexity of the schematic. So for example, the schematic diagram required for a conventionally wired panel like this one on my right requires point-to-point connections, and the wireman will actually have to follow each and every connection point, and typically they yellow line the diagram to verify that they've actually laid the wire. With SmartWire DT, we essentially are eliminating the wiring and basically connecting to each and every device and eliminating the complexity of a schematic diagram. In more complicated schemes, we can actually save some engineering time because in instances like that, the engineer will actually determine the connection points from the I/O modules to the devices, create some sort of cross-reference list for the wireman to follow. Basically, all of that can be eliminated now by standardizing the connections to the SmartWire DT network. And finally, apart from what you'll notice is less wires means basically less time it takes to actually test and verify the connections in the panel. And also what that means on site is that it takes less time to commission and troubleshoot the panel when you're doing your final installation. Thank you for watching. To find out more about SmartWire DT, please visit our website at www.eaton.com/SmartWire DT, all one word. Thank you.